Kira and welcome to another weekly vlog. I'm starting this vlog kind of flustered because it's currently about 4:30 on Tuesday afternoon. I have literally just logged off my work computer for the day and I'm about to head straight out of the door again for something very exciting, which is a pottery class. This was one of my birthday gifts from my friend Sarah last week. She organised for me, her and Em to go and do a pottery class together this evening, which I'm so excited about because at the beginning of this year I started watching a TV show called The Great Pottery Throwdown and I fell in love with it and I've wanted to try pottery ever since, and I was so excited to get this as a present, but it's quite tight on time schedules because I need to leave the door right now. So just wanted to catch up with you, let you know that's what my plans are for the evening, but can't chat because I have somewhere to be. Is that the Great Pottery Throwdown? Yeah, I think I'd like to sign up, please. Thank you very much. For real though, that's kind of like the dream that lives inside me and has done since I started watching the Great Pottery Throwdown, and I feel like last night that dream kind of came a little bit true. Obviously I'm not quite ready to sign up for any kind of pottery competition or anything like that, but it was so much fun. Like, it really did live up to all of my hopes and dreams and it was just the best time ever. So it was just so wonderful and obviously really fun to do it with Em and Sarah as well. And I just can't wait to keep learning. You know, I'm using the word bowl loosely here, but I made a few bowls, tried out some techniques, actually got to throw on a wheel, which was just so satisfying. And there's really so much that goes into it, just like the simple thing of making a bowl. And you could see the guy Lee who was teaching us obviously had been doing it for years and it just kind of came so naturally to him, but when you're completely new to it, it's like so much to think about, but it was just so satisfying. And I think unlike any other kind of like artistic or crafty thing that I've done where it feels like you need to get things like exactly right and I just get frustrated with myself, it felt like the type of thing that was just fun to try, and everything that you made, even if it was absolutely terrible, felt like a good learning experience, if that makes sense. And I also felt super relieved because the studio that we went to uses every piece of clay over and over and over until it's turned into like a proper pot that's like gone in the kiln and has been turned into like hard pottery. So basically everything that you made and messed up, the guy just like collects up and uses this like major machine thing to press it all back into clay that can be used again. So again, it just felt really nice because it meant that you could just do whatever you wanted, didn't have to worry about messing it up. It was all just for fun and for learning, and it was just lovely. So yeah, I made a few bowls, bowl-like sort of shapes anyway, and I just had the best time doing it, and I've already booked to go back next week. Next time I'm going with Jay because he has a day off next Tuesday and I wanted him to be able to try it out as well because we watched the Throwdown together. But I'm just so excited, you know, I wasn't expecting to be amazing or anything like that, and I certainly wasn't, but it's the type of thing that I can just envision myself exploring and growing in and hopefully getting better and better. And I think it's the type of skill that is just one that comes with practice and just a bit of dedication, and I am so excited to get into that and also to try out like glazing, because my favourite thing in the world, or one of my favourite things in the world, is mugs, and I just love mug designs and the way that they're just like, I just love mugs, you know, and I can't wait to do some glazing. So I'll be able to do that in a couple of weeks once some of my pots that I've made have been like put in the kiln and have like dried out enough to get glazed. So I'm very excited to try out that skill as well, but it was just amazing. I had the best time and I just think it was Amazing! I really just feel so fulfilled right now. So it is now Wednesday, and is it Wednesday? Yeah, it's now Wednesday, and this evening I actually have a live show for the Dark Academics book club. For anyone that doesn't know, I host a book club alongside 4 wonderful other booktubers, Mary, Lucy, Emma and Carolyn, and it's actually our year anniversary in May, so we've decided to have like a booktube birthday party situation. So we've got 2 live shows this week. The Wednesday one is on Mary's channel, so that's going to be tonight. It's like a Q&A and maybe some reading sprints, and then on Sunday there is one on my channel which will be very exciting. And the book that I've decided that I'm going to pick up for the reading sprints this evening is All the Young Men by Ruth Coker Burns, and this is a memoir which I'm loving recently, all about the AIDS crisis in a small southern town in America in the 80s. So Ruth is basically a woman who comes across a young man in a hospital in like 1986, and he is basically dying of AIDS, and none of the nurses or anyone wants to go anywhere near him, and she basically spends his dying moments with him to make sure that he's not alone, and that kind of kickstarts and spirals into her being there and advocating for lots and lots of men throughout this crisis who are otherwise completely alone and abandoned even by the medical system. So I think it's going to be really incredible. It gives me very similar vibes to the show that I watched in January called It's a Sin, which was on Channel 4 in the UK, and it was all about the AIDS crisis in the UK, and there were similar characters who really tried their best to use their positions of privilege to advocate for those who were being ignored or abandoned or mistreated by the medical system and just by society in general. And I really, really loved that show, so I think this is going to be an incredible memoir. And I think I may also pick up a fiction book as well later on in the week, but I haven't decided what that's going to be yet. So as of right now, just finished work, it's Wednesday evening, and I'm just going to have some dinner and then go for the live show, which I'm very excited about. I can't believe it's been a whole year of the Dark Academics book club. Okay, so it is now Friday, and there I was last week going on and on about how great it was to have a 4-day weekend for my birthday, without realising that I also have a 4-day weekend this weekend as well, because I don't work Fridays at the moment. I'm on furlough on Fridays, and then Monday is a bank holiday in the UK, so essentially got another unplanned, unexpected treat of a 4-day weekend for a bank holiday, and that is just honestly the cherry on top of the cake that is just weekends in general, because just love a 4-day weekend. Go 4-day weekends, am I right? But yeah, it's Friday. I'm feeling pretty happy now that I've realised I've got 4 days off. And I just got back from the gym, which always makes me feel pretty positive, but I have to say it was tough to get there this morning. It was leg day, which is my favourite day in my split, but it's also the one that I feel like requires the most energy, and so it was a bit difficult to get myself up and out and just at the gym this morning, but I always feel all the better for it. But I feel like I credit my session today to some major throwbacks that I've been adding into my playlist. So my playlist at the gym is such an eclectic mix of brand new songs and then some way older ones, and recently I've added into the mix some bands that I loved when I was like 15 and 16. So today in my leg day session I was listening to Pierce the Veil, Sleeping with Sirens, Linkin Park, and honestly, first of all, such a nostalgic throwback, but also such a good way to get pumped up because the music is just like, you know, so it was great. I loved it, and I'm very much enjoying like taking that trip down a musical memory lane. So that's where we're at. It is Friday, I don't have work today, so I am free as a bird to do whatever I want, but let's be real, what I want to do is watch Grey's Anatomy. I'm going to try and do some reading though, and I do have a little reading update to share with you, all about All the Young Men, which I am now only about, let's see exactly how far I am. I think I'm about 50 pages into this book. I'm on page 54, so haven't read a huge amount yet, and what I have read has been already super impactful. Like, it really starts with a massive like smack to the face, essentially just like bringing you into the reality of this horrific situation that the protagonist, or I guess is it a protagonist in a memoir? The author, this horrific situation that this author found herself in. It literally starts with her, first of all, in the hospital with her friend who's like really ill with cancer, which is, you know, harrowing enough as it is, but then while she's there, she notices this like door that's basically blocked off, no one wants to go in it, not even the medical professionals, and it turns... Bless you. Are you done? Now? You good? The irony of having a rabbit with hay fever. So yeah, so it's a harrowing situation. She finds herself in this hospital room with a young man who is clearly dying from AIDS, and no one wants him. She tries to call his parents, they don't want anything to do with him. He's basically an outcast from society and is just completely neglected. So she sort of spends his dying hours with him to make sure that he's not alone, and then has to take care of the body and all of that kind of stuff. And she basically makes a name for herself in this small town. I think she's in like Arkansas, and she basically is just there to help these men. It's very much a new thing to her, not something that she went out of her way to do, but she just kind of fell into this like life basically where she couldn't say no to these people who were otherwise completely alone. So I'm only like 50 pages in, as I said, and already she's encountered so much death. She's also a single mum dealing with a custody battle. She's looking after her young child, and it's just like suddenly a whole load of things have just presented themselves to this woman who basically never asked for it, wouldn't have, you know, otherwise been encountering these men who were dealing with severe illnesses, and yet because of the compassion and empathy and just human kindness within her, she couldn't turn them away like all of the other horrible people seem to be doing. And it's just so shocking to think about medical professionals acting in the way that the medical professionals are in this book. Like, it's just so wild to me to think that, you know, nurses and doctors would refuse to see patients and just like leave them in their darkest hours just to basically die with no one there around them. And so obviously it's really great that Ruth was able to kind of offer some comfort to people, but the shocking thing is that she shouldn't ever have had to be in that situation. So I'm definitely going to do some more reading of this book later on today. I'm going to definitely watch some Grey's Anatomy now though with a cup of tea, but I'm going to read more of this. I feel like it's just going to be such impactful, but I'm sure very emotional read as well, because it's already just got so much sorrow and it's only 50 pages in. So that's my reading update, and yeah, it's Friday, so woohoo!
clear from above, looking back on it all. Maybe I can see what was broken. Ooh, but it's a lonely calling. Yeah, it's a lonely calling.
So I am now over halfway into All the Young Men, and everything that I've said about this book so far still stands. It is super impactful, very harrowing. It is obviously framed by such an awful situation and so much medical negligence and so much loss. But I also feel like there's an element of hope within it, because we have, you know, one woman who, against all of the odds, you know, she's a single mother, she doesn't have a lot of money, she's kind of shunned from her community, but against all of those odds, she makes it her mission to try and do everything she can to help as many people as she can. And so the beginning part of this book is obviously very much about her being overwhelmed, just people dying, her having no idea what to do. But as we start to get further into the memoir, it becomes a little bit more hopeful, because she starts making connections, finding out which medical professionals will help her, helping to get to people before they're already sick, and trying to sort of spread awareness and just spread knowledge about how to avoid the situation, rather than just, you know, helping people in their worst circumstances. So I feel like obviously it's going to be a sad book, it's going to be dark, it's going to be difficult, because obviously that is what the situation was, but I feel like it's just, there's an element of hope coming into the narrative now, which is a little bit more uplifting. But yeah, it's just one of those books where you like read it and you're just like, I can't believe this actually happened to people, and like this is how people were treated, and just, yeah, it's just sad. So very much like invested in this memoir, and I'm hoping to be able to finish it today. But I also thought, because this is quite a sort of like dark and just very like sobering narrative about something that actually happened to real people, I wanted to kind of balance that out with something a little bit more lighthearted. So I've decided to pick up a fiction book as well, and it's actually going to be my first read on my Kindle. So I've never had a Kindle or an e-reader or anything like that before, but basically my friend Em from her channel A Little Writer Em, her family essentially ended up with like an extra Kindle, because I think one of her parents got a newer one and no one else wanted this older one, so very kindly they gave it to me. So big shout out to Em and Helen, because I'm very excited to finally have a Kindle. And the book that I've decided to download is one that I saw on Instagram, and it is The Cornish Midwife, which I just thought sounded so freaking cute. I'm a big fan of the TV show called The Midwife, and so as soon as I saw this one I was like, I think I'm gonna like it. And it also looks very similar to the books by Jenny Colgan, which are like An Island Christmas and Christmas at the Island Hotel, and they're basically just like small town romances, and that's exactly what this sounds like. So it's by Jo Bartlett, and essentially we have a midwife who is from this very small town in Cornwall, and she had previously left to go and make it in the big city, but then something kind of goes wrong in her life and everything changes, so she finds herself back in her small hometown and settling back into this like really sort of small town community, and obviously working as a midwife as well. And I'm sure there's going to be a bit of romance in there, and I'm just very excited. I feel like it's going to be just like a feel-good, fluffy romantic read, which is exactly what I want. So gonna do some reading of that later, also continue on with my memoir, but right now just waiting for Jay to come back home from work, and then we're gonna go to the gym. So can confirm that The Cornish Midwife that I'm reading on Kindle currently has been an excellent choice. I read a few chapters before bed last night, and what I've read so far was exactly what I was expecting it to be. It's a very like cliche start to a romance, but I mean that in the best way possible. So it starts off with our main character Ella, who is about to get married in London. She lives in London, but she is from a small town in Cornwall, and she is a midwife, and she is engaged to this guy who's like a music producer, and essentially they have to live in London. And just before the wedding, Ella's dad is like, are you sure you want to go through with this? Like, is this the right guy for you? All of that kind of stuff. And then the husband actually ends up jilting her at the altar, which then kind of shifts her whole world around. And to try and get back on her feet, she takes a 6-month work contract in a new midwifery unit in her hometown in Cornwall. And so when she gets back there, she starts bumping into various people from her past and her childhood, including some old flames, which is where I'm thinking the majority of the romance is going to come from. So it's the type of book where you kind of know where it's going to go, you have a rough idea who you think she might end up with, but it's just so fun and lighthearted and fluffy that it's just a really enjoyable experience, even though it isn't the most like shocking or surprising plot. It's quite, you know, just like you can pretty much gather where it's going to go. It's relatively predictable, but it just feels really nice and comforting. So I'm going to be doing some more reading of that later on, as well as continuing with All the Young Men. But it is now Sunday. I just got back from a post-gym coffee session with Em, which was lovely. And I'm so excited because I'm actually wearing jeans. I've had really no jeans over the last few months, except for one pair of mom jeans that are like on their last legs, because all of my jeans were just either didn't fit or they had holes in, and obviously no shops were open. But I got some new jeans this week and I'm feeling very, very excited about it. So Jay and I are just about to head out for some lunch with his family, and then when I get back later on, I'm gonna have a cozy Sunday afternoon of reading. I honestly cannot believe how magically the weather has transformed. I saw so much torrential rain last week that I was A, beginning to wonder whether I'd actually gotten the date wrong and it was the middle of December instead of the middle of May, and then B, just whether the sun would ever shine again. But this week, on a bank holiday weekend, nonetheless, we have been blessed with the most beautiful weather. It is warm outside, there are blue skies, it's sunny, and it's just so wonderful. So it is now bank holiday Monday, so the last day of the weekend, and reading is one of my top priorities for the day. But I do have some reading updates to share with you. So we'll start with the Kindle read that I'm currently on, which is of course A Cornish Midwife, and I am currently 51% of the way into this book, and I'm just loving it so much. It's just so cozy, so wholesome, but it has a little bit of grit, which is what I love from my romances. I like a romance that's predominantly just fluffy and fun and is something that you know you're going to get a happy ending out of, but that has just a little bit of more like dark or serious themes thrown in there. So of course this is about midwives, so there's a lot of like medical talk within this novel, and I think that offers a great opportunity to kind of add a little bit of grit in. It's very similar to Call the Midwife, where you know that you're aiming for that happy ending, but you have characters and expectant mothers and things like that who are experiencing slightly more difficult circumstances. So one that we've got in this book is a young girl who is like 18, just about to go off to university, has discovered that she's pregnant, she's living away from home, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to tell her parents, and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of grit in there. We obviously have our main character who's dealing with the fallout of a breakup of a relationship that she kind of didn't want to be in anymore, but I think this does a great job of showing that even if you've kind of reached the end of your relationship and you're not really invested in it anymore, it's still a big change to then have to start again and sort of put yourself back out there and open up your heart to new people. So I think it's doing a great job of showing that not every relationship has to end in like a super dramatic way, although this one kind of did. But even if you're like, yeah, that was the right decision and I shouldn't be in that relationship anymore, it doesn't mean it's necessarily easy to move on. So I'm loving that, and I just think it's just such a nice book. So yeah, over halfway now just, and I'm hoping to finish this book today, she says optimistically. I feel like anytime I say that, first first of all, take a shot whenever Kira says, I think I'm going to finish this book today. And then second of all, it's a pretty good indicator that I might not finish the book that day. But I have a few plans this morning. I'm going out for coffee with Sarah, and then I'm meeting up with my stepdad and my little sister to go out for coffee as well. Jay and I are going to go to the gym, but that should all be done by mid-afternoon. And then once I'm done with that, I just have Grey's Anatomy and books on my radar. I've done a little bit of reading of All the Young Men this morning, but I did spend most of yesterday's reading time focusing on the Cornish Midwife, so I haven't done a huge amount more on this one. I'm currently on page 220 of this book, so I've got a little over 100 pages left to go, but I'm well over halfway into this book now. And again, everything that I've said so far still stands absolutely. It's very impactful, very harrowing, and it's just, I think, one thing that stood out to me in this last section of the book, because at this point in the novel we're at the very early 90s, and like the knowledge surrounding the AIDS epidemic is starting to expand and people are becoming more and more aware of it. But I just think it's a really sad indicator of something that still happens in society today, of the fact that people only start to care about stuff when it may affect them. And so when it's something that they could look at as a disease that only affected gay men, it was easy for people to demonize it and view it as something that was affecting other people who should be blamed for their own actions, and just all kinds of horrible thoughts that allow people to the epidemic and make it something that's not going to ever affect them. Whereas as things progress and it becomes clearer that this isn't a disease that is just going to impact one specific community and it could affect everyone, then people start to care. Which is just sad, because it's like you only care about things that might affect you, whereas Ruth is obviously someone who dedicated a lot of her time to helping people regardless of the impact it might have on her, regardless of the fact that she knew it probably wasn't going to impact her, and just helping people because she thought it was the right thing to do. So it's kind of like, on one hand, like optimistic, because there are good people like Ruth who are willing to go above and beyond to help people regardless of whether it's something that really truly affects their personal life. But then also, that's one person, and then the majority of people are the type of people who only care about things that affect them. So yeah, it's just a very sobering, harrowing, dark, but just like, yeah, just a sad read because of like the fact that it's real. So yeah, lots of reading to do this afternoon, but right now I'm heading out for coffee, and I may end up going into Waterstones, although I'm not allowed to buy any books because I've got so many books, including all of the books that I got for my birthday, which will be featured in a birthday book haul coming very, very soon. So my bank holiday weekend is officially over. It is now Tuesday morning. I'm about to start work for the day, but before I do, I wanted to share a very positive reading update, and that is that with the last few hours of my bank holiday Monday, I managed to finish off reading the 2 books that I have been reading this week. And honestly, what an incredible week of reading. I really, really love both of these 2 books, although in terms of how they are as books, just where they sit on the literary spectrum, they could not be more opposite to each other. Their impact on you as a reader, the way that they make you feel, the way that they're written, of course one is fiction and one is non-fiction. There's just so many things to make these books very, very different from each other, and yet I love both of them so, so much. So before I get into my work day, I wanted to give you one final reading update. So let's kick it off with the book that I started this week, and that was All the Young Men by Ruth Coker Burns. Now this book was just so incredibly impactful. It was of course a memoir, which I think made the topic that it was discussing and just the gravity of the information all the more impactful, because it's impossible to allow yourself to forget that this is something that happened to real people and is something that has continued to impact those people who managed to live through it. There's a section towards the end of this book talking about survivor guilt and the way that people who made it through the epidemic but were connected to the community that was most affected by this illness, how they couldn't sort of go on to just enjoy their lives because they were just touched by so much loss and hardship, and how it affected them for the rest of their lives. So impactful. And since finishing this book, I have had a little read of some other Goodreads reviews, and I feel like everyone who's read this book is unified in just being completely in awe at how impacted they felt by this narrative. And just, it's something that we all know was really awful. The AIDS epidemic is something that everyone is aware of, but I think hearing sort of firsthand about someone who was doing their best to help the situation and became really connected to this community, how they felt about it, and just sort of hearing that firsthand experience and sort of reality of it just made it, like I say, all the more impactful, all the more real. And yeah, it's obviously a harrowing read, it's sad, it's just really difficult to read about. Like I said the other day, how little people cared about it and how much people wanted to just like completely push these people aside and just treat them as outcasts just to avoid like actually solving the problem, and also in order to kind of like boost their own egos of their twisted senses of morality and like their view of what is good and bad in the world, and kind of viewing that people should deserve these illnesses. There's just so much like dark stuff in this narrative, and the fact that it's real makes it feel even darker. So like I said, I feel like my words about this book are just so mixed, because like it's just so difficult to put into words in a succinct way such a huge experience as is explored within this narrative, but very impactful, harrowing, but at the same time there is some hopefulness within this narrative, and it's just, I think, a really, really important like story to read. So would definitely recommend this, especially for memoir fans. Anyone who watched the TV show It's a Sin, 100% would recommend this as well, because this feels like the non-fiction counterpart to that fiction TV show. But yeah, just so incredible, so impactful, and just, yeah, wonderful. So next up we just have this Kindle. I'm not going to show you it because it's not very exciting to look at, but I was reading The Cornish Midwife by Jo Bartlett and I loved it. It was definitely the light-hearted, fluffy romance that I needed to kind of uplift my spirits when I was reading such a sort of dark and serious memoir, and it was just wonderful. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I wouldn't say it's necessarily my favourite romance of all time, but I absolutely loved it. It was cheesy, it was fun, it was happy, and I just thought it was just really, really wonderful and perfect for anyone who at any point in their life just wants to be uplifted, because you can't read that narrative and not feel a boost in happiness. It is very, very similar to my favourite Jenny Colgan, who writes The Island Christmas and the Christmas at the Island Hotel books, and other ones set in small towns, all about this community spirit and romance as well. So if you're a fan of Jenny Colgan, absolutely would recommend. If you're a fan of the TV show called The Midwife, then I think that it basically feels like a modern version of that, in the way that you get invested in the midwives, in the medical professionals, but you also get snippets of people in the community in their individual stories as well, and it feels very much like a mosaic narrative, in the sense that we have main characters, but that all of the little people that they meet throughout their entire narrative really build up the story and this community spirit, and it's just so wonderful. I was very, very happy to see there is another book, a sequel to that book, coming out over the summer called A Summer Wedding for the Cornish Midwives. I think that's what the narrative is, but it's basically about a wedding for this community. And there is also one that came out in 2019 that is called Christmas with the Island. No, I'm getting confused between Island and Cornish, but Christmas with the Cornish Midwives, and I think that's going to be wonderful. Definitely going on my December reading list already. But yeah, had such a wonderful time. These books were incredible, and I feel like they have just boosted my desire to read again, which is always a nice feeling. And I just feel like I have been absolutely blessed with literary goodness this week. It's been such a fun week in general, with the bank holiday, with pottery, which I'm so obsessed with. I can see myself being a potter for the rest of my life, and I've only done 1 class, but you know, don't get ahead of myself. But I'm very excited, and hopefully I'll be able to share more of that with you guys as well. But I digress. Thank you so, so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this reading vlog. I feel like this has been more of a classic reading vlog as opposed to my birthday vlog last time, which was a little bit more hectic. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.